Welcome back to Autism 411. I'm Dr. Tamara Moody. Thank you for an incredible response to our very first episode on Spectrum Alert. Your message reminded me why I started this podcast to educate, to inspire, to have the conversation that too many often unheard. But most importantly, I didn't want to just be a podcast that talked about autism, what causes autism. I wanted it to be different. I wanted to talk about what people usually don't talk about. So this morning, we're going to be talking about a topic that completely changed the way I think about self injuries. This topic was inspired by a man I respect, a dad, a friend, and someone living with autism. For nearly 3 decades, I've worked alongside individuals with autism and their family. When someone mentions self injurious behavior, like many, I immediately picture someone hitting their head, biting themselves, scratching until they bleed, or engaging in behavior that cause visible physical harm. I thought I understood self injuries. I thought I understood SIB. I thought I understood self harm. Then I heard a story that changed my perspective altogether. A few weeks ago, during one of my Saturday parent training, the ones I usually talk about sleeping in your own bed, eating, party, and so forth, I decided I wanted to do something different. So I invited a father to share his story. He was diagnosed with autism later in life, and during his presentation, he talked about self injury. I'll be honest, I was confused because I'm like, I know this man. I've known him for many years. What is he talking about? So I started to pay more attention. After almost 30 years in this field, when I hear the word self injurious behavior, I immediately think about someone hitting their head, biting themselves, scratching their skin, or causing some physical harm, of course. But then he looked out at the audience. And I remember just having this like feeling like, wow, he said, I hurt myself every day. And I thought, how? I've never seen him with any marks, and he's never said this to me before. And I've been a confidant for him for a very long time. He's talked to me when he's sad, he's talked to me about different things, but he's never said that before. So instead, he explained that every day would tell himself, I'm stupid. I can't do this. I can't do this right now. I'm not good enough. I don't fit in. Everyone else is better than me. Doubt. He had doubts, lots and lots of doubt, and he would say that to himself. He said those words became the injury he carried. Think about that for a second. Because I thought about it over and over before we decided to do this podcast. You're saying to yourself, I'm not good enough. You know, I can't do better. This is who I am. I'm not smart enough. I'm not handsome enough. I'm not the best father. I'm not the best husband. And in an instant, he explained that for him, that was his self injuries. He said those words were his injuries, those words were him hurting himself. And that's when I realized not all self injuries leave bruises. Let me say that again. Not all self injuries leave bruises. That conversation with him presenting to the parents changed me altogether. I'm like, gosh, I've been in this field for 30 plus years and I've never heard this before. And I thought I've seen and heard everything that there is about autism. It reminded me that self injury isn't always something we can see. Sometimes it's a constant negative message people tell themselves. Sometimes it's years of believing that they aren't enough because the world has made them feel different. Those injuries don't show up on an x-ray. They don't leave scars on the skin, but they can leave scars on a person's confidence, mental health, and quality of life. How many times have we heard a child say, I'm dumb, nobody likes me, I'm bad, I always mess up on everything. I wish I wasn't me. I wish I didn't have autism. Because guess what? I've heard it. What if we stop dismissing those words as just frustration and start hearing them for what they really are? A cry for help. As a parent, a teacher, a professional, We spend so many times protecting our children from self harm, research, therapists, medication. But are we paying enough attention to how they are really talking about themselves? Because eventually their inner voice becomes the loudest voice they hear. And our job is to help make that voice filled with hope instead of shame. So let's take a closer look at what self-injury really is. What most people hear the word self-injury behavior, they think about physical behavior. Those are real and important as well. I would not, this conversation is not to diminish or make self-injuries like someone hitting their head like small and make this one big, because guess what? They're all self-injuries. So, self-injuries include headbutting, biting, scratching, hair pulling, hitting oneself, or other behavior that cause visual injury. But there's another side that deserve our attention. And today I want to make sure that we're paying attention to this side as well. There are emotional wounds that no one can see. There are individuals who spend years hiding who they really are because they're afraid of being judged. There are children who learn that being themselves isn't accepted, so they constantly mask their emotion and behavior just to fit in. That kind of emotional pain doesn't leave bruises, but it still hurts. Now, I also want to speak directly to the parents of children who are maybe nonverbal. You may be listening and thinking, my child can't tell me that they feel like they're stupid. They can't tell me that they're hurting inside. And you're right. They may not be able to say those words, but that doesn't mean they don't have those thoughts. It doesn't mean they don't experience frustration. It doesn't mean they don't feel misunderstood. For many individuals with autism, especially those who are nonverbal, behavior becomes communication. Self-interest behavior may be their way of saying, I just can't take this. I'm just over this. I don't understand. I can't tell you what I need. Something hurts. I'm scared, or simply, please help me. As a professional, we have to stop asking, how do we stop this behavior, and start asking, what is this behavior trying to tell us? Let me say that again. As a professional, as a parent, we have to stop asking, how do we stop our child from hurting themselves? And start asking, what is the behavior trying to tell us? Every behavior has a purpose. I'm going to say that again. Every behavior has a purpose. Every behavior has a function. When we understand the why, we can begin to change the outcome. Then connect back to that father. That father who spoke at my training could tell us what was happening inside of his mind. Many of our children cannot. But I wonder, if they could tell us, what would they say? Would they tell us they, like I said, just can't take this anymore? That they're in pain? That they don't know how to ask for a break? That they feel trapped because their thoughts are bigger than their words? We may never know exactly what each individual is experiencing, but we do know they deserve for us to stay curious instead of making assumption. They deserve for us to stay curious instead of making assumption. Whatever the words are spoken out loud or communicated through behaviors, pain is still pain. I when I thought about this, I was like, God, let me just share it again. Whatever the words are spoken out loud or communicated through behavior, pain is still pain. When it comes on to our kids, they feel pain. That I know for sure. There's no there's no doubt. I'm not even second guessing myself. So we need to give them an outlet. How do we do that? As a parent, educator, therapist, community members, we have to ask ourselves important question. Are we only responding when we can see the injuries? Or are we paying attention to the child who suddenly become quiet, the teenagers who withdraws, the adult who smiles on the outside but feels completely helpless on the inside? Sometimes behavior is the only language pain has. Sometimes silence speaks louder than words. Our job isn't simply to stop a behavior. Our job is to understand these behaviors or the absence of them. We're trying to communicate. We create environment where individuals feel safe. We create environment where individuals feel safe enough to be themselves. We can listen without judgment. We can teach emotion regulation instead of expecting perfection. We can recognize that asking for help is strength, not weakness. And perhaps most importantly, we can remind individuals with autism that they don't have to spend their life pretending to be someone else just to be accepted, because they are enough exactly as they are. That father story reminded me that even after a decade in this field, I still have so much to learn. Autism continues to teach me. Families continues to teach me. Advocates continues to teach me. If today conversation changed the way just one person see someone living with autism, then we've made a difference. Because not every injury is visible and not every bruise is on the outside. Before we end, today's episode, here is your 411 minute. This week, I wanted to challenge you to look beyond what you can see. Ask yourself, who in my life may be carrying pain that isn't visible? Is my child masking all day at school and falling apart at home because home is the only place they feel safe? Am I focusing only on the behaviors, or am I trying to understand what's causing them? Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a therapist, an employer, a friend, remember this. Every behavior tells a story, and sometimes the loudest cry for help is the one never spoken. Lead with curiosity, lead with compassion, and most importantly, never assume because someone looks okay, they're okay. This has been your Autism 411 minute. Stay informed, stay compassionate, and remember, sometimes healing begins with someone simply feeling understood.